Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie, host and head bookologist here at the Get Literate podcast. I'm a book loving, notebook hoarding reader and writer on a mission to change lives one book and one notebook at a time. On this podcast, we explore the power of bookology. What's that? That's the study of books and reading and notebooks and writing mixed with mindful practices and creativity to create lives we love. Here, you'll find episodes exploring the reading and writing life and how they can make our actual lives better. You'll get book recommendations and notebooking prompts around particular themes, and you'll even hear from authors and special guests who can fuel our reading and writing hearts and help us take inspired action in our own daily practices. So, grab a notebook and your TBR list, and let's get literate. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Get Literate podcast. I'm Stephanie, your podcast host and your friendly bookologist, always talking about reading and writing. Today is the last episode of 2024. And while many of us are still recovering from our holiday enjoyment, many of us are also thinking ahead. We are in the Hush Week, as Beth Kempton likes to call it. I used to call it the Gap Week, and some people even call it the Dark Week. But I like to think of it as a forward planning week. It's like this 1 week of the year where time is suspended. Yes, there is still living. Yes, there is still work. Yes, there is still laundry and dishes and all the things. But I've always felt like there's something special about this in-between week where we're reflecting on how the past year went, enjoying the present holiday season, and at the same time, still planning ahead for what's to come. Now, as is Get Literate tradition, the last episode of the week is where I talk about my upcoming year's notebook stack. And that's what we are going to do today. I am going to share my 2025 notebook stack with you in an attempt to get you to think about your notebook stack, your notebooking, and your writing life. Now, this is a tradition. This is a couple of years in the making. And over the years, my notebook stacks have changed a little bit over time. But one thing is always for sure. I have a lot of notebooks. Now, I know there are some of you out there that have one notebook that does everything you need it to do. And admittedly, I'm a little jealous. But that is just not how I work. I like things to have their place. I like things to be incredibly purposeful and organized. And while others may be able to do that in a single notebook, I just can't. I just can't. And so the number one question I get when I release my annual notebook episode is this: why do you have so many notebooks, Stephanie? And I have so many notebooks because of that reason. I like things to have a place, to have a purpose, and to be dedicated to one thing. And so for me, it works better if I have multiple notebooks that represent the multiple things that are important to me so that I actually remember to give them the time and the space that I want to. If I just had one notebook where I plan to do 4, 5, or 6 different things in it through the coming year, I know me. I know I wouldn't do it. I need these physical notebooks as physical reminders to do the things I say I want to do. And so I have so many notebooks because there are so many things that I either do or juggle or want to do and juggle. And these notebooks are my tripwires. And I need those tripwires visible so that I remember to show up for them. So if that's the biggest question I usually get after this episode, why so many notebooks? Here is the next question. Why are your notebooks so different? Now, I talk a lot about finding the perfect notebook. And admittedly, there really is no such thing as one perfect notebook for every single person. But I feel like we need to give ourselves the opportunity to indulge, to spend 15 minutes thinking about a notebook that would light us up, that would get us excited, that would give us little goosebumps, that we actually spent the money on it and gifted it to ourselves in an act of self-care. And as a reminder that we are important. We deserve that notebook. We deserve to show up for ourselves, and seeing it sit there will remind us of that. Now, I don't want you to get so locked into the perfection that you buy what you think is as close to the perfect notebook as you can get, and then it stops you in your tracks because you don't want to ruin those pages. And what if you write something wrong? And what if it's not good enough? No, 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 no. That's not why we choose the so-called perfect notebook. We choose the so-called perfect notebook to show ourselves that we matter and our writing matters. And so for me, my notebooks are so different because my idea of the perfect notebook changes depending on the purpose. So if you are the kind of person that can have one notebook for everything, you likely do have just one kind of notebook that you love, and you press repeat on it every year because it works. But for me, each of my notebooks serves such a different purpose that I need them to look and feel and act in a certain way. So for example, in my morning page notebook that I will tell you about, that notebook is private. It needs to have a durable cover so that it can close over the notebook I stick inside. It needs to have a ribbon that goes through the pages so I can quickly find my current spot because I write in it often. And it needs to have one of those bands that goes around the outside to keep that nice solid cover shut, so that when I'm hiding it and I'm keeping it out of vision of everyone because this is my private notebook, it doesn't get destroyed. Now, that is much different from my quote notebook, which is a cherished notebook of all of the quotes I love from the books that I read. That notebook doesn't need to be so durable. It doesn't need to be hidden away. It can be out in the open in a nice, safe place away from my coffee cup. And so that notebook is often a very beautiful notebook. I love getting those softer notebooks that have beautiful covers so that I can fill these notebooks quickly and have stacks and stacks of them on my bookshelf, showing all of the wonderful book quotes that I've collected over the years. Not only that, hopefully inviting others to pick them up too, because I want these quotes to touch me, but I also want them to impact others as well. So that's why the notebooks that I have and the notebooks that I'm going to share are so drastically different. Now, if you want to dive in to what the perfect notebook might be for you, again, depending on your purpose, then you can head to the show notes of this episode, and I will link to a blog post I created on how to choose the perfect notebook step by step by step. I do plan to turn that blog post into a future episode, so be on the lookout for that one later in the year as well. And now the third question I usually get after I release my annual Notebook Stack episode is this: how often do you write in all of those things? So first, why so many? And then why so different? And then third, how do you do it all? Well, here's the simple answer of how I write in them all. I don't write in all of these every day. That's impossible. I wouldn't be doing anything else. And as lovely as that sounds, I still have to work and have a family and clean my house and all the things. So the reality is, while I may have one or two or three or four or five or six or seven notebooks, there really are only a couple that I write in consistently. And even when I say consistently, I don't mean every day religiously. I mean 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 times a week. That's maybe for one notebook, my morning page notebook. But my quote notebook, that only comes out when I have a quote worth writing down from my reading. Or my I can't talk today. My new notebook for this year is my yoga notebook, right? I only go to that when I am planning yoga sequences or taking courses in order to continue my own learning. So yes, I have a big stack, but no, I do not write in them every day. I don't stress myself out to write in them every day. Our notebooks are here to serve us. They are waiting patiently for us, and they do not judge if we don't get to them as often as we say we want to. They are just there and happy to help whenever you open up the cover. And so when I share with you my notebook stack today, I don't want you to think, "Oh my gosh, she has she has 7 notebooks that she's writing in and she's doing that every day. What am I doing with my life?" No. No, no, no. These are just the 7 that I will open up at some point during the week, during the month, during the year. So I thought I would get those big 3 questions that I usually get asked after an episode like this releases in an attempt to answer the questions that you might have. It was also an attempt to knock down any, "oh, but I can't," or any negative thoughts of creating your own notebook stack, right? Because I just said, you don't have to have as many as I do. You can have one. You don't have to have as many different kinds of notebooks if you don't want to, but you could. You don't have to write in them every day, but you can still have a stack waiting for you. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, you are ready to listen to my notebook stack and let your mind play with the possibilities for yours too. Now, I already did a little drop of what my number is this year. And it's a lot, or at least for some of you, it's a lot. For those of you that know me, it's quite typical. And for me, it's just the way my notebooking life goes. So this year, I have 7. I have 7 different kinds of notebooks that I plan to write in throughout the year with an extra bonus notebook that I will tell you about. So let's get started. And then after I tell you my 7 notebooks, I'm toying around with the 8th, and I need your opinion about that. So stick around. So how am I going to tell you my stack? I thought I would start with the progression of my day and how, if I were to write in my notebooks every day, this is likely the order that I would write in them. So my very first notebook that I want to share, this is the one that I write in very often. Actually, the first 2 that I'm going to share with you, I pretty much write in every single day because I have been doing this habit for years and I've gotten quite consistent. That notebook is my morning pages notebook. Now, if you know me, you likely know all about my morning page practice, but if morning pages are new to you, this was a practice developed by Julia Cameron. Julia Cameron has this wonderful philosophy about morning pages and artist dates and all sorts of wonderful things to help you build a creative life full of abundance and energy and flow and whatever you want to fill your life with. The rules are pretty simple. You show up to your notebook every single morning, first thing in the morning, ideally, and you write. You write personally. You write expressively. You write to get whatever is on your mind and in your heart onto the page so that you can see when these little nudges come to you. This is bothering me. What should I do about it? Oh, I just had this idea. How could I run with that? There are so many things that pop up on the page when you just get used to writing a volume of writing every day. Now, technically, Julia says we should be writing 3 pages of long form writing every morning. Admittedly, I don't do that. I still don't think I quite have the hand strength to do that without getting a little bit tired. So I have a smaller notebook. I have an A5 size, and I write in it front and back every day. So I do at least 2 pages, and I usually just stick to those 2 pages. Now, what does my morning page notebook look like? I already hinted to that, but I have a moleskin notebook. It's an A5 moleskin soft cover cashier notebook with the lightly lined pages and that beautiful ribbon to hold my place. Now, that is how I choose to write or what I choose to write in. But this morning page notebook needs to be protected. I want it to be the same so that that is the notebook that triggers to me, get up, get the the cup of coffee. What's going on today? And write. And so I have this beautiful cover, this hard cover. It looks like leather, but it's not. It's yellow It's a Michael Kors notebook cover that I got for Christmas one year, and I put that moleskin notebook inside of it so that it's protected. It's protected. It's protected. The cover is nice and hard so it can be shoved into a hiding place. There is a band that goes on the outside so it will never ever accidentally flutter open for someone to read it, and I can keep it out of sight. But for me, it is a very iconic kind of cover so that is my morning page notebook, and I simply refill it whenever it gets full. So that is my morning page notebook, my beautiful hardcover yellow sunshine book of therapy. Now, the other notebook I write in every single day, and admittedly, I've written in this notebook every single day, 365 days a year for 3 years. My only regret is that I did not start this practice earlier. And I hate myself for it because the reason I didn't start this practice earlier was that I thought it was too late to begin. My kids were already older. I should have done this when they were little. I'm here to say that it is never, ever, ever too late to start a 5-year journal. That is my second notebook. It is a 5-year journal. It's called One Line a Day. Maybe you've heard it as the One Sentence Notebook or the Memory Journals. It's basically a notebook, and mine is nice and small and colorful. Although my next one, once this is filled up, I want to have a bigger section to write in. But it's this cute, small, chunky, colorful notebook that I write in different colored, fine-tipped markers and different colors every day. And it basically is taking one good thing from the day I want to hold on to and jotting it down. That's it. Some people do this at night. They keep this by their bedside and they write one good thing to savor before they go to bed. I wish I was the kind of person that could read and write at night. I am not. So every morning with my cup of coffee, I think back on the previous day and I pull one thing that I want to note. It's still fresh enough in my mind that I remember all of those little things, but I'm not too tired to do it at night. And I just love to be able to look back and say, on August 3rd in 2022, my kids decided to play indoor wiffle ball and they slipped in their socks on my newly mopped floor. Or I like being able to go back to, let's see, May 2nd of 2023, where I talked about just going out for a walk. And it was a walk after a week or two of not walking. And I said, I'm not going to take these walks for granted anymore. Right? Or maybe I go to July 31st, right, of this year, of 2024, just a couple of months ago, and remember how hard I laughed when I watched the first episode of Grace and Frankie with my daughter. Right? This notebook is my most cherished notebook. It is not too late to start one. Right? What does Gretchen Rubin say? The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is now. So if you're looking for a new notebook practice in 2025, make it be a 5-year journal. You can commit to just one sentence a day, put that notebook by your coffee maker, and I promise you, at the end of the year, you will be so glad that you started. Now, number 3, this notebook is more of a typical spiral bound notebook. I do like this notebook, and I'll reveal what it is in a second. I like it to have at least a durable cover, usually with something aesthetically pleasing on the front. I like to have a spiral bound notebook, but I want a special spiral bound, and I'll pay a little bit more money for it, where it's not going to get all tangled and make it hard to turn those pages. I like that wider spiral with more space so that it flows and it lays nice and flat on my desk. And I like it to have light lines. I used to be a no line kind of gal, but now I just like light lines so that my writing is taking the show, but it is still nice and neat. So what do I use this more typical notebook for? It is my professional notebook. Now, I don't really have a great name for it. It's not a morning page notebook, a 5-year journal. It's my professional notebook. It's my work notebook. It's my passion notebook. It's the notebook that I write everything work related. And I'm saying work in air quotes because I love my work. I love doing this podcast. I love interviewing children's literature authors on my Kid Lit Love podcast. I love planning my Grow a Restorative reading course. I love planning my summer retreats around reading and writing, right? So I'm saying it's a work notebook, but it really is a passion project notebook, and everything goes in there. So I am quite proud of that. I at least have one notebook for my work life. And so this is where I brainstorm notes for upcoming workshops or classes. It's where I plan out every single podcast episode for this podcast. It's where I plan out every single author interview for my Kid Lit Love podcast. It's for all of the lists of a project that I need to break down and complete. This notebook has everything related to this little passion work project of mine. And I love being able to look back in these and see how my vision for what I want this little side hustle to be, to see how it has grown. So it's more of a typical notebook, and everything goes in there, and I'll put some sticky notes or some flags in for important pages that I want to revisit. But it's basically a notebook filled with everything related to what I love to do for my so-called work. And so planning for this episode, it's in there. I have a notebook page for my 2025 Notebook Stack podcast episode that I am literally using right now as the outline. So number 4 is actually not a notebook. It's a calendar. It's a planner, but I use it as a notebook because I purposely got the kind of planner that has a spread. It has a double page spread for the month that acts as the calendar. And then it has a double page spread for lists, important dates, monthly goals, monthly tasks, and then there are pages for notes. And so I do still think of it as a notebook, but with a calendar inside. This calendar / notebook is for my work / passion projects. I do not have a personal calendar, and I'm going to talk about that at the end. But this calendar is my podcast calendar. I note exactly when every episode is going to release. I note which authors I'm going to talk to, when their books are publishing, when I should put the review out, when I put the show notes out, when am I hosting this class, when am I doing this live retreat, when am I doing the restorative reading classes. All of this goes into my old-fashioned paper notebook. Now, yes, I do use Google for my day-to-day calendar, but for some reason, I just like to be able to look at the next couple of months on my work schedule, at least for my podcasts, and just be able to see it in paper and pencil. I do not have a digital podcast calendar. I do not have anything digital related to the podcast in terms of planning. I just use this old-fashioned calendar / notebook. And so I do check this often, and I am writing in this on an almost daily basis. Okay, so we've gotten through 4 of my notebooks, and those 4 I do write in quite often. The next set of notebooks that is coming your way are notebooks that I don't write in quite as often, but they do serve a wonderful purpose. Now, I already mentioned my quote notebook. This is my notebook of treasured quotes and one-liners that I have pulled from the books that I have read. It's really simple. I just open up the notebook, write the title and the author, and then make a bulleted list of all of the quotes I do not want to let go of. And I simply just keep moving through those pages until I filled that notebook. I put that filled notebook right on my bookshelf, and I start another. Now, what do those notebooks look like? Well, those are prettier, I guess I should say. I don't have a need for them to be durable. I do like to have light lines though, and I do like to have an A4 or an A5 size. smaller than a regular so-called composition notebook. I like that because it is more aligned to the sizes of the books that I'm reading. And so when I stack my book and my quote notebook together, it's this nice looking, nice feeling. I can pick both up in my hands and steadily grab both and take it wherever I need it to be. Now, for a while now, the notebooks that I have used have come from Target. You know, in the stationery section, they have those 3 notebooks. They're thin and they're threaded edges or threaded spines. They're not glued. They are not spiral. They actually have, if you open up, you can see the thread that has bound them together. I have used those for a while. I love that they're threaded. I just think it's an extra special touch for a notebook. And I love that the covers are adorable. They're usually based on the season. So in the spring, I'll get a set of 3 and they'll have beautiful flowers. In the fall, I might have fall scenes or beautiful foliage on the covers. Or sometimes it will just have an inspirational message like dream big or live with curiosity. Those are literally covers that I have already filled. And so these quote notebooks travel with me when I read and then go on the bookshelf as a beautiful reminder of all of the words I did not want to let go of. And I will pull them out every so often and just read those quotes and remember and think about them. Now, my next notebook is a brand new notebook for me. I started it last year. And I started it last year because I started a yoga teacher training program. And you know me, if I was doing something new, I needed a new notebook. And so I have a yoga notebook. There's 2 sections to this notebook, sections that I have made. Section 1 are just notes on what I am learning in my teacher training program. I finished my 200-hour program. I'm moving on to my 300-hour program. And so I have a section where I am just writing everything that I am learning, kind of old-fashioned college lecture note style. But the second part of my notebook, and this is the fun part, this is the creative part. Oh, I have so much fun with this now. That is actually where I plan my yoga sequences. And now get ready, because in 2025, I am really heading to YouTube with some of my yoga practices. There will be yoga sessions for readers, yoga sessions for writers, micro yoga sessions to do before and or after reading and writing to get the juices flowing. And my favorite, themed classes, 1-word themed classes that include a short reading and a notebook prompt. I cannot wait to launch this in 2025, and my notebook is holding it all together. Now, what does that notebook look like? I actually have this one in my hands now, and it took me a while to pick it, and now I'm switching it. So the one I have now is an, what are these called? Disc bound. I can never remember that name. It is a disc bound notebook. Why is it disc bound? Well, I didn't know what I didn't know. I knew I wanted to take notes about yoga. I knew I wanted to use this notebook as a place to plan, but I didn't know what I didn't know about how to organize it. And so I wanted a notebook where I could move the pages back and forth as I got my feet wet and figured out how I wanted to grow into this practice. I knew I needed my notebook to shift and change with me. And I knew my old styles of notebooks that I loved with spiral bounds and threaded spines wasn't going to work. So I chose an A5, a little bit smaller notebook where I could take those pages in and out easily with those discs. Now, what did I find? I find it was too small. I am learning a lot, and so I am writing a lot. And so I need more page space. The other thing I found is that when I put my notebook down on the ground in front of me, just outside of the camera's view, so that I don't forget everything I wanted to do in the yoga practice, I realized it's too small. It's good enough to take notes for, let's say, a 5, 10, or 15-minute yoga practice. But when I'm doing a 30 or a 45 or even an hour-long class, I need to write a lot of notes so I remember pose by pose by pose by pose. One page just isn't going to do it. And you may be saying, Stephanie, well, turn the page, sweetheart, right? Pretty easy solve. But I didn't want to do that. I don't want my notebook to be visible in the YouTube channel. And I eventually want to remember all of these sequences on my own. And so I didn't want to have to take a break to reach down, quickly turn my page, and move on if I had forgotten a longer sequence. I know, first world problem. So I am going to stick with the disc-bound notebook, but I am going to go out and I'm going to buy the typical 8.5 by 11 size. I love that it lays flat. I love that I can move and reorganize the pages. And I just love the looks of the cover. I have this beautiful foil cover with these gold foiled leaves that just feels like a yoga cover. You know what I mean? So that is a new notebook for me. And I would say that I've really enjoyed having this yoga notebook because it's more of a passion notebook. It is something that I am just doing for me and I am learning and growing into and loving the journey and having a notebook that captures something that I don't technically have to do, but I really want to and I'm really loving it. It just makes my heart happy. When I can flip through the pages and see all I have learned about this area of life that I have never tapped into, it makes me feel proud. When I can look and see the 39 yoga practices that I have already sketched out and started to teach, oh my gosh, the pride, the confidence, the happiness I get that I realize I'm doing the thing that I said I've wanted to try to do. It's just a really great artifact of that. And so you may not need a yoga notebook, but I bet you could have a passion notebook. And we'll talk about that in a minute when I ask you to think about your 2025 stack. Now, my last notebook, if we're not counting my little extra notebook that we'll get to, my last notebook is one that scares the pants off of me. It really does. This notebook is my writer's notebook. And you might be thinking, Stephanie, what do you mean you write in every single notebook that you have just talked about? Yes, I do. But this notebook is my writer's notebook, the notebook where I am writing the books that I have rolling around in my head. It's where I'm putting ideas onto the page. I'm putting outlines for stories. I'm practicing first lines. I'm creating story arcs. I'm actually writing pages of text to see how it feels because I like to do that longhand first before I go to the computer. And so this scares me because it's a new identity. And yes, I've written books. I've traditionally published 2 books for teachers, but there's something about writing fiction and writing for kids that just feels scary to me. And I think that's why I have to do it. And so I have a writer's notebook where I'm just putting ideas and writing down lines and writing down arcs and keeping that notebook visible so that I write in it. Now, right now, the notebook I've chosen because it's pretty. I know. Maybe it'll change later, but this is a nice small notebook. It's not too much bigger than the palm of my hand. And you might be thinking, don't you want a regular size notebook if you're writing books? And the thing is, I'm not actually writing the book in here. I'm writing about the book here, and I'm getting inspired for the book here. And so I want it to be something that can travel with me. So this notebook is a nice little hardcover fabric notebook that is a little bit bigger and fits in the palm of my hand. It has a cool little folder in the back cover so that I could stuff in bits of paper or inspiration. And it does have one of those bands that keeps the nice lightly lined pages folded together. Now, I bought this at Ollie's. I think it was $4, and I loved it so much. I bought a bunch of them so that I would not run out. And so this is what I plan to use for my writer's notebook for now. It's pretty, it's beautiful. It is just a striped fabric cover with a lot of bright colors, which just feels so inviting to me. And so this is the writer's notebook so that 2025 can be a year of new writing for me. So there are my core 7 notebooks. My morning page notebook, my 5-year journal, my professional/passion notebook, my calendar, my quote notebook, my yoga notebook, and my writer's notebook. Now, the extra notebook I mentioned, that is just a teeny tiny notebook that I keep in my purse so that when inspiration strikes, or the to-do list needs to be written down, or the groceries need to be listed so I don't forget them, I just have a catch-all notebook that's really tiny in my purse to capture my thoughts when I need to capture them. Now, I'm still toying around with this next notebook, and this is where I said I would love your feedback. Do you use a paper planner personally? I use a paper planner and a paper calendar for my work, but I don't use one in my personal life. And I kind of want to. I think that I would find it very productive and very enjoyable to start to track, what am I doing with my family? What are those kids' events? What could my meal plans be? When am I going to exercise? When am I going to see friends? What podcast did I listen to today? What books did I read this week? I feel like a paper planner is not just a planner, but it's a celebration of the living that you have done that week. And I kind of want one. But I also know that I have been so used to planning digitally that I would really need to make some routine shifts in order to make it work. And so I'm still trying to decide if that's something that I want to do in 2025. I'm not going to put pressure on it and say, "Oh, if you're going to do it, you got to do it now. You have to start January 1st." I don't. I still just want to feel into it, explore a couple of planner options. Inside my Get Literate Facebook community, we have some members who have been sharing their favorites and their go-to shops, and that honestly has been so inspiring to me. So I'd love to know if you have a personal planner and if you love it, if you don't love it, if you think I would love it based on what you know about me so far, and if you have some of your favorites that you could share. You can put them in the comments to this episode post on social media. You could send me an email at stephanieaffinito@gmail.com, or go ahead and click that little audio button and send me a message. Now, I feel like I've been talking for so long about my notebook stack, but I am not done because it is time for you to think about you. Now, I don't know what's swirling around in your head right now. Maybe you're thinking, oh my gosh, she is crazy. I can never do that many kinds of notebooks. Maybe you're thinking, oh my gosh, she is crazy. I totally want that many number of notebooks. Or maybe you're thinking, oh my gosh, that's just a nice thing to think about, but I don't have time for that kind of writing in my life. Or, oh, I'd love to do some more writing, but I'm just too busy. I just don't know where to start. Here's something I want you to think about. And I think it's different than any other piece of advice that someone else talking about notebooking or journaling or writing is going to give you. I don't want you to think about the kind of writing life you want to have. I don't want you to think about the kind of notebooking life you want to have. I don't want you to think about the kind of journaling life you want to have. I don't. Here's what I want you to think about. What kind of life do you want to have? And then how could notebooks help you accomplish it? That's what I want you to think about. I am here to remind you that reading and writing can help you change your life. They are here to serve you and not the other way around. So don't think about all the different kinds of notebooks you want and all the different kinds of notebooks that would be cool to have and all of the writing that you want to do. I want you to think about the kind of life you want. Start there and then think about the kind of notebook that could help you get it. So for example, if in 2025 you want to take better care of your mental health and you want to regulate those emotions, well, then for you, you might think of starting with a morning page journal, with a typical journaling Dear Diary kind of practice. But if you want 2025 to be your most productive year yet, then you likely need to think about some sort of calendar or planner or a work notebook, like I talked about earlier, where you can plan all of the things you want to do and accomplish. Or maybe in 2025, you just want to savor the present moment. You're just so tired of making productive plans. You're so tired of your to-do list. You just want to remind yourself that the here and now is most important. So maybe you gravitate towards a 5-year notebook or even a gratitude journal that we haven't even mentioned here. Maybe for you, 2025 is your year of growth. You want to grow professionally. You want to grow personally. You want a new hobby. You want to learn something new. Maybe you need a passion notebook. My passion notebook right now is my yoga notebook. Maybe yours is your running journal. Maybe yours is your gardening notebook. Maybe yours is a recipe notebook. Whatever it is you want to grow and love, there's a notebook for that. Now, maybe, and I hope this is true, you want to grow your reading life in 2025. Maybe you grab a book journal. Maybe you get a notebook that is just dedicated to writing about the books you've read and printing out stickers of the book covers and slapping them in the notebook, right? Or maybe you want a quote notebook like I do and really pull those gems from the pages that are resonating with you. Maybe you want 2025 to be about your writing life, right? Maybe you do want to write. You want to publish a book, write a memoir. Maybe you do need a writer's notebook. Or maybe you want to create and you want to be more creative in 2025. And so you're going to go for a junk journal. You're going to go for a commonplace book. You're going to get a watercoloring notebook out and you're going to leave your creativity on the page. That's what I want you to think about. What kind of life do you want to have? And then how can a notebook help you get there? I don't recommend that you choose 7 like I do. I have been notebooking for years and years and years, and I started with 1. And then from there, 1 went to 2, and 2 went to 3, and so on and so forth. So I would love to urge you to spend a couple of moments in quiet reflection thinking, what kind of life do I want to have? And then think, what kind of notebook is the next best choice for me to bring into my life to help me get there? And from there, start with that one. Start with that one, write in it in a schedule that works for you. It does not have to be every day, but when you feel like you're consistent, when you feel like it's serving your purpose, when you feel like you're ready for another one, well, then maybe you add it, but maybe you don't. Okay, that's the message I want to leave you with today. I am here sharing my 2025 notebook stack because each of these notebooks makes my life better. I want you to think about the life you want to have and how a notebook can help you get there. I hope that you spend some time today letting that question sink in. Again, it's usually not the stance that you find when you listen to a journaling or a notebooking podcast or get out that blog post, but I think it is one that is so, so important. So your homework is to consider that question and to consider what notebook you will bring into 2025 and to send me your feedback on if you think I should have a personal planner or a personal calendar to add to my stack of 7. This was a long one, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. I'm continually in awe that people love to listen to me ramble on about reading and writing so much. And I hope this was an inspiring episode that brings you into 2025 feeling good about what's to come and how notebooks and eventually books can help you get there. Here's to a wonderful end of 2024, a wonderful ringing in of 2025, and I'll see you next year in the next episode. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Get Literate podcast. You'll find links to all the books, resources, and ideas mentioned in the show notes and at alitlife.com. And if you want more, you might like to join my Patreon community. There, you'll find additional inspiration for your reading and writing life, like bonus podcast episodes, book calendars, monthly book clubs, notebooking inspiration, live events, giveaways, and more. It's only $5 a month, and you get instant access to all of the previous content too. Learn more at getliterate.co. And one more thing, if you love what you listened to today, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast, or take a screenshot of the episode and text it to a friend. This helps the podcast grow, and it builds our bookish and notebookish community too. Thanks for listening.